Thanks to those joining me live and to those that will be joining me on archive. D-Style Boxing here. How's it going, everybody? How you doing? Hold on. Let me get out. There we go. All right. All right. I think we took care of that. With that said, for those listening on the Leave It in the Ring network, we appreciate all the support. You could message me on Twitter at DStout Boxing with any questions for the next round table. We're being joined a little bit by Chief Bunky. We got Emil Carr. We got B from Ringside Reporter. We got Boxing Wave. We got Eric from Ringside Reporter. In the ring with Christine, 408, and Chicano Prophet making his debut on the panel. With that said, we're going to go ahead and get this one started right away. The Zone. All right, they're now offering a pay-per-view offer. All right, now not just to clarify, so there's no confusion whether it's in a panel or anybody listening to this. You can still get the Zone the regular way, the way they've been doing it. Okay, if you have your yearly subscription, you're still going to get the fight. If you're paying a 20 a month, you're still going to get the fight. None of that has changed. The only thing that has changed is that now. People with cable or satellite TV, they can actually order the fight on pay-per-view and watch it that way. And along with that, they get 4 months of the Zone along with the buy of the fight. So this is good for people that don't have internet in their home, although they may not be able to take advantage of the 4 months of the Zone. All right, they're still able to be able to watch a Saul Canelo Alvarez fight. I want to start with Eric from Ringside Reporter. Well, what are your thoughts on this new thing they're doing?
I think it's great. I really do. I think that it brings more eyes to the sport, number one, but it also brings more eyes. If they want to pay for it, they can pay for it. They can watch it on regular TV. They don't have to download the app, nothing like that. They can still pay for the fight. And then don't they get, like you said, 4 months free or something like that? If they pay the $69, then they still get like 4 months. Yeah. I think that's perfect. I think what DAZN really should do, I think this is a really good model for them. I think what they really should do is start to creep into the satellite, the cable market, and try to get a channel on there. Even if it's just like because they don't have enough content, I don't believe, for like a full channel, like 24 hours a day, but they have enough content to do the on-demand thing, but I think it's great. I really do.
Absolutely. Shout out to the Texan and Katyok 89. I don't even know if I pronounced that right, but it sounded interesting. All right. Milcar, give me your thoughts on this, man. Pay-per-view.
Well, my first thought is actually that I think Eric and Joe have a former co-host that's probably doing the rain dance right now. Happy about this.
Shout out to Rob.
Yeah. You no longer have to use the internet to watch the Zone. There's certain age demographic and population in our country that's going to benefit from that. I think it's a good idea. Like Eric said, it brings more eyes to the sport. I just hope that people don't feel a little bit slighted by not getting the kind of discount that I just heard Eric mention. It seems like they're getting a better deal than I just got before the AJ fight when I had to pay $100 for the year. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I have to do the math, but yeah, I think it's a good idea. I also think it shows that the whole pay-per-view is dead model didn't really ring true. The fact is they are having to go to the pay-per-view route, probably to pay Canelo what he's, demanding and what he deserves as a top-level fighter. So I got nothing negative to say about it at all.
In the ring with Christine. Talk to us.
No, I think it's great. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter kind of complaining about it. I guess that they had a subscription already or whatever, but I think it's a great idea. I think it's genius. It's a business mind at work, and you got to get it while it's hot. And I think I'm with it. I like it.
Absolutely. And Joe Habib, talk to us. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to be the Debbie Downer here. I don't hate it. I don't think it's bad. But I think it's hypocrisy at its finest.
Oh, stop it.
Because when DAZN came out, they were like, okay, we're going to give you pay-per-view quality fights on a monthly basis, and we're never going to make you pay $70 for a fight. We're never going to make you pay $80 for a fight. You're going to be able to watch a multitude of fights for $9.99 a month. But what happens now? The goalposts keep moving, and the mission statement keeps changing. Pay-per-view will never die. If you're a fighter and you want to maximize your earning potential, pay-per-view is the way to go. Errol Spence probably made, I would guesstimate, based off the pay-per-view buys, $5 million. Terrence Crawford's really not a pay-per-view guy. He's making $3 million. $2 million. It's still more than $3 million. So it is what it is. The whole thing about getting the 4 free months, it just looks like they're desperate. They're doing whatever they can to get attention, and I just don't think that they've achieved what they set out to achieve. I don't think that a lot of people purchased the app as much as they anticipated, and I think this is why they keep changing things, keep raising prices, keep coming up with special deals, and we'll see how it works out. But I think Eric made a great point, because I have Comcast and I have a lot of apps on my box, my receiver. I have the Netflix app, which is added into my package. I have I can get Hulu, I can use YouTube, Tubi's on here, Amazon Prime Video is on this box. So why not throw the DAZN app on here as well and maybe add that into a package with satellite and cable? I think Eric made a great point. I think that's the way to go if you want to attract more eyeballs, instead of having to keep changing these pricing things up and all these bait and switch tactics that they've been doing. They never came out and said that they were going to replace pay-per-view, but they insinuated it. And Eddie Hearn, who's the advisor and all, he's a hypocrite too, because Joshua's on pay-per-view. So pay-per-view is a necessary evil. It's never going to go away. And all the people that are sitting there saying, "Oh, well, I hate paying pay-per-view," but you still buy them. And we never really did get that pay-per-view quality fight on DAZN. We never got Joshua Wilder. We never got Canelo Golovkin. We never got Canelo Billy Joe Saunders. We never got Golovkin Billy Joe Saunders. We never got any of those big pay-per-view quality fights. So I don't think they delivered in what they set out and what they said they were going to do. But I still pay them. I still pay the $9.99 every month, and I'm because I'm a junkie. I buy everything. So it is what it is.
Well, there you go. And Chicano Profit, what are your thoughts on this? DAZN entering that pay-per-view market.
I think it's a really good move. There's a lot of old school Mexicans who still don't like using the internet, and even if you make it easy for them, they'd rather just order the pay-per-view. They'd rather just use that remote. And I think that eventually everybody will transition to digital platforms. But for right now, there's still a lot of money to be made in the pay-per-view market. I have a couple of key indicators that I use to see if a pay-per-view is going to do well. And the Mexicans, the old school Mexicans, are starting to know about it. And I think by the time we get to the weigh-in and we all see the size disparity when they're right next to each other, then everybody's going to know Canelo's fighting on Saturday. And there's not much going on, and people can't really go anywhere. And I think the idea of ordering a pay-per-view for Mexicans, Canelo Alvarez, is going to be very appealing. I think it's a great way for them to make extra money, and it's great for boxing in general. Like anything we can do to get eyes on the top boxers in the sport is always good.
All right, 408. Give us some thoughts on this, man.
Well, I like what they're doing.
By the way, has a hell of a body. Look at that.
Look at that. No, I like what they're doing here because I think they're listening and they got their pulse on the market, because the price tag on those PBC fights, the pay-per-views, were in the $70 range. Then you had the Mike Tyson fight that did really well at $50. Then you had Floyd announcing that if you buy his pay-per-view special, it'll be $24.99 right now. So what they're doing here in this ballpark range, they're going to give you that Ryan Garcia fight coming up. They're going to get you a chance to see their future stars that they're trying to develop. And I think that's actually going to be a really smart long-term move. Hopefully people will keep their subscription. They'll see these up-and-coming fighters that they want to draw eyes to. So I think it was a good move for DAZN.
Absolutely. And just reminding you guys, right, there's a lot of misinformation out there saying, oh, see, now you got to buy the pay-per-view. No. Again, once again, you can still get it the regular way. If you have a DAZN subscription, don't buy the fight. Okay, you already have it, right? This is for when your uncle calls, right? And he's like, yo, mijo, esta pinche pelea. Like, okay, like, order it, right? Boxing Wave, what are your thoughts on the zone entering the pay-per-view market in a way?
I really don't have a problem with it at all because you can just still pay the $20 and just have the zone for the full month. If you don't want to do the yearly subscription, you can just pay. It's like paying a pay-per-view. You know, I say this a lot on the channel. Whenever there's a fight that you want to see on the zone, just pay the $20 and you have it for the full month. And you can use it for whatever other fights that's there for the entire month. And then you can end your subscription. So if they're not going to take that away, that option away, I don't have a problem with the pay-per-view. Just like, you know, someone said earlier, there's some old school people that still just prefer not to use the apps. They want to click on their cable box thing and order it the traditional way. So it's just another option. It's not the primary go-to. If they were taking away the $20 for this specific fight, then I would have a problem. Since they're not, I really don't have a problem with that at all.
Well, Sid, I think overall, a lot of people are seeing this as a positive, but I do want to say, though, I do agree with B, you know, that they are being hypocritical here. Remember, they ran commercials saying that pay-per-view's dead. You know what I mean? That those were their commercials. They're going to have to kind of revamp that just a little bit. All right. And so, but look, here's the reality. They should have done this from the beginning. All right. Now, obviously, you live, you learn. It's their money. They're investing in it. So God bless them. But about over 40% of this country lives in rural America, and they don't have access to internet. And if they do, it's not fast speed internet like that. And the other 60%, there's a certain percentage, I don't know what it is, that don't have internet that, you know, reliable to be able to stream things. Well, of course, those numbers are going to get better over time, which the future looks bright in that sense. We do got to think of the now. Like your contract with Canelo isn't 10 years from now. It's right now. You know what I mean? Whatever deals you have with any fight, although that contract's no longer a thing, but that's another story. All right. So we just want to make sure that, you know, those other 40% of Americans have an opportunity to watch a boxing fight on the zone if they're able to. If some farmer out there wants to watch, you know, Canelo fight, then he could do it now. You know, he may not be able to use those 4 months of the zone. He'll call on his son that lives in the city. Hey, you could use this now. I got 4 months of the zone for free, whatever it is. Okay. So, and not only that, it's also a good way for them to introduce the app to people that aren't really that familiar with it, right? Like here, watch the Canelo fight. Hey, by the way, you got 4 months free of the zone. All right, go there. They have boxing fights every weekend. Check it out. So it's a good advertisement for them. And it's actually, if you do the math, it's better, right? 4 months of the zone is $80, right? Right now, what it costs. So the price of the pay-per-view is around 60, 65 or something like that. It's actually a deal, right? It's actually, even if you have it now, like if your month subscription just ended, you're better off buying the fight and you're actually getting a deal for the 4 months, you know, or get the year, of course, for 100. But nonetheless, with that said, let's talk about the actual fight itself. Beeb, going back to you, talk to us, Canelo Smith. How do you see this fight, and do you like the fight?
I don't hate the fight, but I feel confident in how I feel it's going to go. Callum Smith is a stand-up guy. He's not a guy that moves his head a lot. He's not a real crafty guy. He's got a good jab. He's got a good right hand. Not a great inside fighter. Not particularly speedy. Not particularly speedy with his feet or his hands. I think Callum Smith's style is tailor-made for Canelo. He's got that long torso, which Canelo is going to rip the body. Canelo's got very, very quick hands. He's got very quick reflexes. He's a good counter puncher. I think he's going to get inside, and I think he's going to really destroy Callum Smith's body, and I think he's going to break him down. And I just see him stopping Callum Smith. I didn't think Callum Smith looked good in his last fight against Ryder. I actually had him losing the fight. When he fought George Groves had a horrible injury. He was at the tail end of his career. I don't think Callum Smith is a bad fighter. I think he's a worthy champion. I think he's a worthy opponent. But I think when you just take a look at both styles here, I like, as I said, I just think he's tailor made for Canelo. And Canelo's not the fastest guy on his feet either, but he's really good at throwing feints and freezing his opponent, and then he sneaks in. And actually, his feet are quicker than Callum Smith's, in my opinion. But Teddy Atlas made a great point, and I very rarely agree with Teddy Atlas, but he did say that he feels as though Canelo has gotten better, and I agree with that wholeheartedly, because I think Canelo realized, hey, I'm not the tallest guy in the world. I don't have the quickest feet in the world. So I got to add some wrinkles and dimensions to my style. I got to start feinting. I got to start sucking guys into traps, counter punching. I got to get inside. I got to move my head a lot, and I got to get creative, and I got to nullify and do things to mask my weaknesses and maximize my strengths. And I think he's really learned how to really focus on those things, as I just said. And I think he's become a better fighter because of it. And I just think his instincts in there have improved immensely. You could tell over the years he's learned through experience. And I just think Callum Smith is who he is. He's a straight up and down guy, outside fighter. Keeps his head held high. He's not a guy, like I said, who's crafty or slick. So I think he's going to run into a lot of problems on Saturday. I'm looking for Canelo. I'm looking for a Canelo stoppage I would say about in the 8th round.
Stop it. Will it be a shot to the body or a shot to the head?
I think he'll drop him with a body shot, finish him with a hook to the head.
Okay, I got you. Okay. And I want to go to Boxing Wave here. Boxing Wave, talk to us, man. How do you see this fight? Do you believe that Callum Smith can pull this off?
No, I think Canelo got it, man. First of all, I have no issues with the fight. You know, on paper right now at 168, Callum Smith is up there. You know, he won the World Boxing Super Series. You know, he's a champion up there. I have no problem with the fight on paper, but stylistically, he's tailor-made for Canelo. You know, just for all the reason he just said, he's tailor-made. He's tailor-made for Canelo. You know, I don't. The only thing is, I don't know how durable Callum Smith is. You know, I never seen him getting beaten up at all in his career, even though I don't think he beat John Ryder. He didn't get hurt too bad in there, you know. But the one thing that I saw in that fight, even, you know, looking at John Ryder, similar dimensions, you know, similar height. John Ryder was able to get him against the ropes, had his back against the ropes, and Callum really didn't have anything for John when his back was against the ropes. And that's the reason why I pictured Canelo winning this one. And Canelo hits much harder than John Ryder. I mean, he's just his punch variations and everything is just, he's just on a different level at this point, you know. I see Canelo. I just don't know if Canelo's gonna stop him, but I think he'll win clearly, you know. And Callum Smith is a good fighter. It's absolutely nothing wrong with this fight. But I just don't see Callum being the one that is going to beat him. You know, it's based on preference, and I would have preferred a Caleb Plant. I would have preferred a Billy Joe Saunders. Just the matchup itself. I'm not saying these guys did more at 168, but based on preference, I would have preferred those two. I would have even preferred David Benavidez. You know, just because of the styles. You know, I think the Benavidez fight would have probably been the most fun fight. I don't know if David could beat Canelo, but just based on the styles, it would have been a better fight for me. All right. So I don't know. Maybe Callum can surprise me and bring a better fight than what I'm expecting. But he's a little too stiff up top. He doesn't have one specific like attribute that I can say like that he's great at doing. Like he's solid, he's balanced, but there's nothing there that I can say, well, he's gonna, you know, Canelo's gonna have trouble with this one thing. There's nothing there outside of him being tall, you know, and Canelo's usually fighting guys that's taller, longer, moves well, you know. He's fought every kind of fighter leading up to this point. Is nothing that Callum Smith has that I think is going to be better for you know, an advantage, an advantage in this fight. So that's my views.
408, talk to us.
You know,
Can Callum Smith pull the upset?
Callum Smith absolutely has the tools. If he pulls off, like Eddie Hearn was saying this week, if he pulls off the perfect performance, he has a tool set there to pull off an upset. I would say by decision. But judging from what that John Ryder fight, people who didn't get a chance to watch it can just quickly go to YouTube and watch it. That guy at 5'9" had incredible success inside the pocket against him. And most of us know that Canelo is one of the most devastating punchers. Dan Canobio have pointed out from CompuBox that Canelo has with fighters over 6 feet tall, he has a 432 to 232 edge and total connects. That's over 200 punches. Canelo has all the confidence now to fight guys that tall. He has that confidence. I don't think they picked him with any fear that he can't beat this guy. And I think, like Beeb said, pretty much, he's going to get inside and break him down. The question is, will Smith make it interesting? Will he fight tall? Will he fight long? Will he use all those advantages? Or will he stoop down to Canelo's level and allow him to do what he does best, counter punch and hit him with hard shots, hard, devastating body punches? I think Smith is going to fold under the pressure, and it could very likely end up just like the Kovalev fight, a stoppage in the late rounds.
Oh,
All right, it's all right. I just had to fix something really quick. And speaking of Chief Funky, talk to us, man. Can Smith pull the upset here?
Well, first thing I want to do is apologize for being tardy. Had a kind of a crazy day today, but I did a prediction, broke it down, the way I saw it or see it on my channel. But I'll give a quick thing here, man. I'm taking Canelo by a 10th round stoppage, and I just think that the things that Smith does well, they don't present any kind of trouble to a guy like Canelo. I think the thing that gives Canelo trouble is guys that can move around the ring, can give you angles, set traps, things like that. Guys, Smith doesn't do that. He's real in and out on the line. He comes in, he backs out. His defense is really just to kind of put the hands up. I see Canelo going around the guard, landing body shots, landing hooks around the guard. But the thing with Smith is we see the obvious height advantage, the reach advantage is there, and he's got a good jab. To me, that's his best punch, and that's really the punch that has been giving Canelo trouble lately. From what I've seen, Kovalev was landing that jab a lot. Triple G was landing the jab a lot. So if he can make it, the night of the jab, he might have, it could get interesting. Another thing that I notice he does a lot too is when he does back up sometimes is he likes to throw a little left hook while he's backing up. I think he dropped a couple of dudes with that left hook. It's a pretty good sneaky left hook that he can land. I think he can land that on Canelo too. So he's going to have to be careful. But I don't think that this kind of defense here is going to get it done against a guy like Canelo. He doesn't really move his head a lot. Smith just kind of backs straight up. I mean, Ryder, who's a guy who's around the same size as Canelo, was able to back this dude up against the ropes a lot in that fight. And that's not where you want to be against a guy like Canelo. Not to mention he's really good at parrying shots and countering. So I'm going to take Canelo, but I mean, it could be interesting if that jab is on point. Could get interesting, but I'm still rolling with Canelo in this one, man.
All right. And let's go with Eric from Ringside Reporter. Can Smith pull off the upset here?
Absolutely, he can. In fact, I'm not picking him to win, but I've been saying all week, and I've talked to Beeb a lot about this fight, man. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. It would not shock me to see either guy win. I think Canelo's going to win, but it would not shock me. I would not consider it an upset if Callum Smith won. You watch Callum Smith, and I just, like you said, he's got the tools to beat him. He's got the tools to beat anybody. He really does. And, as far as Canelo goes, and you talk about the size difference, and everybody goes to that, the last fight, who was it? The other Smith guy, or Rocky Fielding, excuse me. It was Rocky Fielding that had the height advantage. But what about the Kovalev fight? I mean, he didn't do great in there. I mean, he won that fight, but Kovalev, listen, man, Kovalev is at the end of his career, and it looked like Canelo went life and death with that guy. And we're looking at similar height differences here. So I don't think height difference is going to, tell the entire story, especially when you talk about like a guy like Fielding versus, Kovalev and all that. I think that Callum Smith has a really good chance. Does he have enough? I don't know. I don't think he knocks Canelo out. No way. If he's going to do it, he has to do it on a decision. Is he capable of winning the decision? That's another thing. Is he capable of winning the fight? Yes. Will he get it on the judges' cards? That I don't know. That's a real tough call. Canelo is like Oscar De La Hoya was, kind of like Floyd Mayweather was. He gets a nod on a lot of cards, whether he wins or not. That's not to say he doesn't deserve it, but it is what it is, But I will tell you this, though. If Canelo wins that fight this weekend, who's better pound for pound than that guy? I mean, everybody wants to say Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, and, they throw names around. That guy is the top pound for pound fighter in the game. I don't think there's any question about it. And if he wins this fight on Saturday, who's got a better resume than that guy? I mean, really. So.
I couldn't. Right now, the only guy that has a better resume is Manny Pacquiao, but not recently. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's by default. He's been around forever since T-Rex was boxing. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Christine, what do you think? Do you think the upset's going to happen?
I'm definitely going to go for Canelo. But Callum, we have to remember that boxing is a business, and so we have to also give our people across the pond what they want. So this is why this fight is made, and I think it's a good fight. I really do. Callum, he smothers his punches. He's really long. He's great to the body. But Canelo, as it's been said before, he sets traps. He does shoots great feints, and he doesn't just feint the jab. He feints hooks. He feints uppercuts. He'll do something, and then the person that he's fighting is timing them, and then he'll switch it up. I totally have Canelo, but I have him for the 10th round, and I have him for a headshot. I don't think it's going to be a body shot. I think he's going to go to the head. He's going to bait him in, and it's going to be over.
Well, what about in a game of 21 basketball, Christine? Who would you favor?
Oh my gosh, basketball, really? Come on.
Yeah, who would win that game?
G-Funky will win. G-Funky will win.
Do you remember what was his name? Spud Webb. Way back in the day, he was this tall. Okay, so Canelo could win in basketball too. Yeah, it's not impossible.
What about Nate Robinson? Y'all remember Nate Robinson?
Yeah.
That was a low blow.
I don't know. Hey, Milcar, who wins in a game of basketball? Who's going to win the fight? and can the upset happen here?
I think the upset could happen, but Callum Smith's going to have to do a little bit of an AJ and bring out the Huggy Bear tactics. He's got to cue the right in the dressing room. Have the never going to give you up on repeat. Try to dominate from the outside with the jab and just do Huggy Bear, Huggy Bear, Huggy Bear on the inside, because against John Ryder, it was pretty much established that he cannot fight very well on the inside. So his attributes are clear. This is a 6'3", 168 pounder. I mean, that's huge for the division. I think the only one who's more of an anomaly for his division is the 154 pounder. Can't remember his name right now, but the young kid at 154.
Fondora.
Yes.
Fondora.
Absolutely. Callum Smith is a huge 168 pounder. So his deficiencies are clear. They were brought out by Ryder. Ryder's a similar height, similar reach. I think they're both 5'9". I mean, the difference with Ryder is obviously that he's a southpaw, but it wasn't really the southpaw stance that was troubling Callum Smith. It was more the inside fighting and the pressure. So if he's willing to stink it out, hug on the inside and try to dominate the outside with a jab, I can see him lasting the distance. Like Eric, I think it's going to be tough for him to get a decision, especially if he does something like that. I mean, we're not in England. We're in the United States. But Yes, I mean, he's solid. He fights within his skill set, which is something I always mention about fighters that do that. He doesn't, take too many risks. When he takes risks, they're very calculated risks. And he's got decent power. But like I said, it's the inside game that's, if he does lose by knockout, that's going to be to the detriment right there. It's going to be the body work by Canelo. And Callum Smith's inability to really do much on the inside.
All right. Look, shout out to Speak Your Mind Sports Talk out here and then Run PMC, Haplotype, Joe Lopez, 40 ounce. Get this smoke. All you guys. Speak Your Mind says we have to consider in an upset, consider upset even if we believe Callum could win. We're talking number one pound for pound fighter versus Callum Smith. You beat the best in boxing, then it's an upset, pound for pound king. So he's saying, hey, if he beats Canelo, that's an upset, period. You know what I mean? And he called him pound for pound king. Who couldn't really argue with that? Which kind of interesting point that Eric brought up, and I kind of want to take it around the round table here. He says, hey, number one pound for pound, who do you got? Wave, do you think he's number one pound for pound, or you got somebody else?
I'm sorry. I have Canelo pound for pound. I have him pound for pound. I've had him pound for pound even before this fight. I think Manny Pacquiao is the only active fighter that has a better record than him. And that's because his career is from the 90s. So I think Canelo, I mean, listen, I like other fighters more, but on paper, Canelo has the best record. There's other, there's fights that we can sit here and chat about which fights I think he lost or where the judges, gave him an extra few rounds, or we can have that conversation. But on paper, Canelo is pound for pound. I don't think anyone comes close to his resume.
Okay. Christine, who do you have number one pound for pound?
Okay, so yeah, as far as on paper,
just don't say Clarissa Shields, please.
No. Yes, on paper, definitely Manny and Canelo, but can we say most dangerous? I am totally about Terrence Crawford. It's like, and it all has to go back with promotions, management, everything, making these fights or whatever. He wants to fight anybody. So yes, on paper, these two and Canelo, yes. But if you ask me personally on the side, I'm gonna definitely say Terrence Crawford.
Terrence Crawford. Okay. All right. We'll keep a count here. All right. One for Crawford, we'll do the official roundtable pound for pound number one right now. We'll see by the vote. 408. Who do you got number one pound for pound?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't always a huge fan of Canelo, but he is number one. And Terrence Crawford, as much as I like him, he's a 2-division champion. Spence has just been sitting at 147. So Pacquiao with a close second. But I want to give props to G Funky because going back to this Smith, he brought up the fact that Smith has a fantastic left hook, and he used that in devastating fashion against Hassan and Dam. And but, ultimately, I think that fight is going to play out like Paul Williams and Sergio Martinez.
All right. Let's see. Beeb, who do you got? Numero uno.
Well, I'm not a huge pound for pound guy, but I will engage in this conversation. A lot of times, a lot gets put on resume, and I'm not saying that resume is not a big component on who the best pound for pound fighter is. But it's subjective. There's so many things you could look at. Just like when you're scoring a boxing match, do you like the guy who brings the volume, or do you like the guy who brings the quality? Do you like the guy who's the aggressor, or do you like the guy who makes the guy miss and he counter punches? So pound for pound is the same thing. With me, when I look at I like to use the eye test, and I like to look at a guy and see what he's able to do and the amount of things he's able to do well, and just the overall skill set of the fighter. And as much as I admire Canelo, like I said, he's improved. He's got a great resume. I would think he has the best resume in recent years in boxing because Manny Pacquiao has taken long breaks or what have you. But in terms of recent year resume, I don't think you could argue that Canelo would have the best resume. But when I look at pure ability, I have to agree with Christine. Terrence Crawford can do everything. He can box, he can counterpunch, he can fight on the outside, fight on the inside, mid-range. He could grind it out with you when he has to. He can be that guy that walks you down. He can be that guy that out-finesses you. He can go southpaw, orthodox. He can knock you out in the southpaw stance with the lead hand, throwing a modified version of a jab. I don't think Canelo can do all of the things that Terrence Crawford can do. So in terms of just raw ability and athleticism, I would have to argue that Terrence Crawford is the most talented fighter in the sport of boxing today, in my opinion.
I know what's going on. You just want to be contrary to what Eric said. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I think.
What he always does.
You know what I mean?
What he always does.
But hey, well, it's getting close.
Misinformation. That's misinformation.
I'm going to go to you next, Milcar, but before I go to you, I want to get, Chicano's take really quick. Chicano, can Callum Smith pull it off against, Canelo?
I don't think that he can. I was listening to all the breakdowns. They're all great, and I think we all see it the same way. I don't think he has much of a chance, but these odds actually aren't that bad. I mean, we're talking about Canelo, who's a negative 500 to 600 favorite against Callum Smith, who's a reigning defending world champion. And if you look at the Crawford book fight, those odds were 3 times as wide at negative 1,400. So I think we're all treating this fight like a foregone conclusion. And I think it is in a way. But, I mean, this is going to be an excellent fight while it lasts. I think Callum Smith knows what he needs to do to win. And I think that's what's going to make it fun for all of us.
Right. And also, Chicano, to follow up with that, we're talking, is Canelo number 1 pound for pound?
I think if you have Canelo or Bud Crawford, number 1 pound for pound, you totally have the right to think that for your own reasons. I think that the resume speaks for itself. We're starting to have to break Canelo's resume into parts. People are starting to criticize him for not fighting these type of fighters recently. There's stages to Canelo's career, and he's actively still facing champion after champion after champion. And what makes a fighter great is when they take on great competition. Terrence Crawford is also extremely versatile, great boxer, and like Beep says, and he could just do it all. I love watching him. So, I mean, if you have him number 1, I get that as well. And pound for pound, to me, I think we're starting to all talk about it a little bit too much. To me, I'm starting to talk more about legacy, who has the better resume, who's going to be the greatest fighters of their generation and why. And I think that's a conversation that we should start having, because that's what's going to matter at the end of the day.
Well, we're going to definitely get there. But Milcar, I need to hear this, because you put in the private chat, but I don't know if you want to keep it a secret or you want to go on record right now. Are you 100% about that?
I got to outline my methodology first. So, I mean, for pound, I'm looking at someone who is like the number 1 most dominant fighter in his division, if I'm going to entertain the idea of pound for pound. So, I mean, I like the weight jumping that Canelo does. I mean, he knocked out Kovalev. That's great. He knocked out Rocky Fielding. That's great. He beat Gennady Golovkin at 160. That's great. But so far, he hasn't really staked a claim as being the number 1 guy in any specific division. So that is kind of my main criteria if I'm ever going to entertain pound for pound, because to me, the best fighter in the world is always the heavyweight champion of the world. The heavyweight champion's Tyson Fury. So Tyson Fury's my number 1 pound for pound. And in addition to the fact that obviously he's unbeatable from guys from the lower weight classes being a heavyweight, I mean, look at what he did against Tom Schwartz against the ropes in the Matrix. I mean, the guy knocked out Deontay Wilder. He beat Vladimir Klitschko. I got to give him his props. So I'm going to throw that one out there. Wild card, a little bit out of left field. But Tyson Fury's my number 1 fighter in the world.
Objection, Your Honor. I don't know. We're not.
But my number 3.
Just really quick, who? Okay, he's the most dominant, but he's in one of the weakest divisions in boxing. No offense to heavyweight boxing fans. It's one of the weakest divisions in the sport, bro.
Yeah, but I mean, look at did Canelo take on Beterbiev or Bivol? He didn't. When he went to 168, he took the lowest hanging fruit that was available, Rocky Fielding. The fights at 160, were a little bit disputed with Golovkin. I thought he won, but they were close fights. You know, and at 154, he had a lot of disputed fights. I thought Lara beat him.
Who's the Perturbiev of the heavyweight division?
Puerto Ricans who are pretty much neutral. And I mean, where I was, everyone thought Lara won the fight. You know, he's got disputed fights at 154. So, you know, I get it. He's got a lot of names on his record. But what were the dominating wins? The dominating wins he had, essentially, that I can remember recently, have been Rocky Fielding. Eric just said, I mean, the guy struggled until the end, against an old, washed-up Kovalev, was still recovering from a slight beating he had taken from Anthony Yard in Russia. And he'd had a short training camp. So ask yourselves this. What are Canelo's dominating performances?
Beeb didn't put him number one pound for pound. Beeb. Okay, he's the biggest Tyson Fury fan. All right?
Right.
So, number one, just really quick, and I'll let you respond, but I never put heavyweights on the pound for pound list. It was never meant for heavyweights, right? Because the heavyweight champion in the world will go out of the realm of pound for pound, is the best fighter by definition because he's bigger, he's stronger. They've always been the best, right? The reason we have pound for pound was because, you know, we saw Sugar Ray Robinson or the scribes at the time did, the fans at the time did, other fighters at the time did, and they said, man, that's the most talented boxer in the world, bar none. Okay, and even an Ali would say, like, hey, I'm better because I'm the heavyweight, but pound for pound, he's better. That's why I don't put heavyweights in the pound for pound.
Well, it's the same bias that exists in basketball. Anytime you want to give a big man credit in basketball, people are like, oh, no, he's just doing that. He's able to do that because he's big. Nah, wait a second. There's a lot of big men in basketball that have tremendous skills, whether it's Akeem Olajuwon, or I could name a whole lot of other people that are highly skilled big men. Unfortunately, heavyweight boxers face the same bias. They don't get credit for what they do just because they're big. Tyson Fury is a highly skilled fighter, highly skilled.
Nobody told Roy Jones he had to fight Lennox Lewis to remain the pound for pound champ when he moved up, right? I'm just saying.
Can we argue that at least Terrence Crawford at 140 pretty much did clean out that division? And
Absolutely.
Because I don't want to nitpick here, but you did say that you didn't. I think you said this, and I don't want to misquote you. I think you said that Terrence Crawford never really dominated the division, or did you mean that about Canelo?
Sorry, if I said that about Crawford, I meant it about Canelo.
Okay, guys. I don't know. I don't know what you meant.
Definitely cleaned up 140.
I think we can make a case that Crawford, you know, made some real noise at 135, and he totally cleaned out 140.
Absolutely.
And I don't think I've gone to G-Funk you with this question, have I? I tell you. G-Funk, who's your number one pound for pound? I know you don't do pound for pound list, but who do you have number one pound for? Who's the best fighter in the sport, in your opinion? Say Canelo.
Well, yeah, you're right. I don't do the pound for pound list. I've never even made a video about a pound for pound list, my own list on my channel. It's just, I don't know, just never been my thing. But I guess it all kind of depends on what you like, because it is, at the end of the day, it's your list, and you can make it about however you like, whether you want to go off of, resume or how many divisions they fought in or whatnot, I mean, I guess you would have to say Canelo at this point, I like what Crawford did. He became undisputed. I'm a big fan of that. That's what I like. Props to him, props to Usyk. And I'm hoping that we get undisputed again at 140 with Taylor and Ramirez. That would be great. To me, there's no doubt once you wipe out a division. So, but I guess you would have to go with Canelo at this point because of, the guys he's fought. I agree with a couple of the guys here and a couple of guys in the chat that said, they might not agree with the fights, that he had early in his career, that he actually won those fights, like Erislandy Lara. I don't think he won that fight, but, it is what it is. He got in there with them. And at the time, like, I don't want to be I know I was called a Canelo hater for years here on YouTube because I wanted to see him fight guys like Trout And I wanted to see him fight guys like Lara. These guys were under the radar while Canelo was getting all the praise. And I was like, hey, well, why don't you fight these guys? They're just as good and they could possibly beat you. But he got in there with those guys, regardless of who you think won the fight. He got in there with them, and I give him props for that. And I guess I would have to put him there, but like I said, it's never really been my thing. I like undisputed more than anything.
So I want to take it to Eric. I want to go to this next, okay? Because it still kind of touches on this, and everyone has kind of touched on it anyway. So and I want to present this question to the panel: is Canelo the front runner to be the best fighter of his generation right now? Like, by the time this guy retires and we look back, are we going to say, hey, I think that guy was the best of his generation? Is he the front runner in your opinion right now, or do you eye some other fighters out there, Eric?
I don't know. I think we're gonna have to wait and see. I mean, in his generation, do we still consider Floyd Mayweather in his generation, even though he's retired? You know what I mean? I would consider Floyd better than Canelo.
Let's say anything, 2015 on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if he would be, definitely the best Mexican fighter of his generation. I think you had Chavez before him, Salvador Sanchez before him. The best Mexican fighter, no question. I don't think there's any question. I think he, no question, the best Mexican fighter. Best fighter of his generation, I don't know about that one.
Okay, all right. What do you think, Beeb? I mean, if we consider him the next generation after the Pacquiaos, after the Mayweathers, after that, the old guys retiring, of this current crop of talent active right now that it's going to be relevant in the next 10 years, you think he's a front runner to become the best of this generation?
I think it's too soon to tell, because you can look at guys like Spence and Crawford and ask yourself, what are they going to do? So if Spence beats Crawford and he beats Pacquiao, he would have already beaten Porter, Danny Garcia. Then he moves up to 154 and beats all those guys and unifies there. Same thing with Crawford. If Crawford beats Spence and then he unifies at 147, either one of those guys could make an argument. But here's another thing, and I'm a huge Tyson Fury fan, and you've already mentioned this. If Tyson Fury beats AJ and becomes undisputed at heavyweight, okay, once again he beat Vladimir Klitschko when Vladimir Klitschko hadn't lost in 10 years. He's the only guy to ever win a decision off of Vladimir Klitschko. He was a huge underdog there, okay, and then he beat Wilder. He was an underdog in both fights, okay. Then he's going to fight, and if he fights Joshua and beats Joshua and unifies, you can make an argument that he could be the best in the generation based off of accomplishments. And again, I don't think it's fair to say, well, he's a heavyweight, he hasn't done it and all. Like Hagler was an all-time great. He's a Hall of Famer. I don't think it's necessary that you have to be a weight jumper to distinguish and determine how great of a fighter you are. Because if you stay in one division and you unify that division and you dominate that division, then you're a great fighter. How many fighters will jump weight classes, win a belt, not even defend it, and then move up again or move back down? And you haven't. A lot of these guys haven't really laid claim. They haven't, like Sugar Ray Leonard, my favorite fighter of all time, won a light heavyweight title. Did he ever defend it? How many times did he defend his 154-pound title? So these are questions you have to ask yourself. Floyd, he won I believe he won the IBF at 140. Did he ever try to unify at 140? So did Floyd ever become undisputed in any of the divisions that he fought in?
He did not.
No. So if Tyson Fury can become, he was basically undisputed when he beat Klitschko because that was the man who beat the man. You know what I mean? And if he goes ahead and beats Joshua, if he beats Joshua, I'm going to say Fury will be the best fighter in his generation, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Shout out to Intangible Boxing. We got Boxer Girl on here as well. Kano Local Sports saying he don't even have Canelo on the list. All right. So shout out to him. Floyd was never undefeated, says Joe Lopez 40 ounce. Boxing Wave, obviously none of us know the future, but is he a front runner? Is he a favorite to become the best fighter of his generation?
Right now, he's in a front runner. I'm not saying he is, but right now he's in a lead. I think he has a comfortable lead. Just to go back to a few things, as far as what we were saying about Bud Crawford, as far as ability, I think he's the best. Okay. As far as my personal favorite, I think he is the best. The only thing with Crawford, and not all of it is his fault, I'm waiting for him to fight that one opponent that I'm unsure of him beating.
Yep.
And that's my reason why I can't. Ability is one thing. That's the eye test. That's my personal preference, though. As far as who is that guy that I feel like, I don't know if Bud is going to win this fight. I'm not sure. Yeah, I got a little bit of nerves, was shaking a little bit when he fought Postol, a little bit going into the Kell Brook fight, especially after the weigh-in and see how great Kell Brook, looked the night before the fight. But I'm still waiting for that one fight, which is Errol Spence, basically, where I'm like, whether or not I believe he can beat that guy, I'm just not sure. And that's not really Bud's fault, because he fought who he fought at 135. He fought who he fought, became undisputed at 140. But at 147 and above, I'm not sure if he can beat all of these guys at 147, or if he were to move up to go to 154. I'm not sure if he can beat all of those guys up there. So I'm still waiting for that one fight. And I'm saying that to say this. Canelo has fought several people that I didn't think he would even get in the ring with. At one point, and I'm talking about years back, I didn't think he would fight Lara. I was saying that Canelo wouldn't fight this guy. Canelo doesn't want any parts of Lara. Lara went up there on that stage and called him out to his face. And Canelo, that pissed him off so bad that he went in there and did it. And I believe him, even as promoter. I don't believe Oscar, but when Oscar said, I didn't even want him to fight this dude. I believe him when he said that, because I don't think Oscar wanted that fight for Canelo. And I don't think I don't think Canelo won the fight. I thought it was close, but I think Lara won. And I prefer Lara's headshots over Canelo's body work in that fight. That's why I picked Lara. I didn't think Canelo would fight Triple G. I thought he was going to really wait into Triple G. And I know Triple G fought Daniel Jacobs, and Jacobs exposed some things in that fight, but I really didn't think Canelo would fight this guy, because we were waiting for Canelo. Canelo went up to fight Chavez Jr. I just wasn't expecting Canelo to fight Triple G. And even though I think Triple G won the first fight, close fight, but I think he won the first fight. The second one's debatable. Still, he got in a ring with him, and then someone exposed this about me recently. Someone went to one of my old videos and pulled out a comment I said about Callum Smith. This is Callum Smith coming off of wins against Rocky Fielding and, the couple of wins, maybe even the George Groves fight. I didn't think Canelo would fight him. But then when Canelo went up and beat Kovalev, even though Kovalev was, coming off of that yard fight, that was another fight where I said at one point, he wouldn't fight Callum Smith. This guy's a monster, until John Ryder happened. And then I'm like, now I'm like, yeah, Canelo could beat him. So that's what I'm saying. Canelo, and I'm sure there's more. Canelo has taken the best fights, and I know a lot of it has to do with promoters and popularity and stuff like that. It's a business. Fighters are willing to get in there with Canelo. They want to. They'll risk the undefeated record to get in there with him. But unfortunately, doesn't have that. Okay, guys don't really want to get in the ring with him. But at least I can say it's on paper and it's proven that Canelo will get in there with anyone for the most part. He didn't get in there with Better BF. Better BF is actually that guy now for me. Better BF is that guy I don't think Canelo will fight this dude. But we have to go all the way up to the best fighter at 175 for me to say, forget about everybody at 160. You got Andrade, you got Charlo, you got all these guys at 168. But Canelo, I have to stretch all the way up to Better BF to say that, okay, that's the real next challenge for Canelo. So this is why I have him at number one, based on his resume, based on who he's, who he's willing to get in the ring with, and who I think would really challenge him at this point. And unfortunately for Bud, even though he's my favorite fighter, I'm still waiting on that one fight, like where I'm like, all right, man, I don't know if he's gonna win this one, So that's my stance. I think he is in the lead, and I think he's comfortable in the lead right now.
All right, there we go. My bad. I was on mute. I want to go to Chicano Prophet. Can you prophesize for us, please? Can you tell us, the next 10 years or so, is Canelo the front runner and being the best fighter of his generation?
I think he's currently the front runner, but I think it's an open question. I think if we're talking about the era that's right after Pacquiao and Mayweather, I think that we have a few more years. Like Dwyer would say, the new generation is already here. So I count perhaps like the Teofimo Lopez's and those 23-year-olds, that might be considered a younger generation. So if we're talking about like the current generation of maybe 25 to 35, we start looking at things like resumes. We start looking at what they've done in a division, unifications, number one rankings in a division. And Canelo, what he's done is very impressive. A lot of people like to criticize what he's done, but at 160, he went there. He fought the lineal champion, and then he fought the guy that we all wanted him to see. He fought Triple G, fought him twice. That was the next guy to see. And then next in that division was Danny Jacobs at the time. He was the next guy ranked and a champion. And, when he didn't go undisputed, everybody was criticizing him about it, but he made his moves and he moved up. He continues to fight champion after champion after champion. A lot of these guys are undefeated, and or future Hall of Famers, and he's still continuing to do this. And people criticize him jumping in between weights. That used to be something that was marveled back in the day. And so I think that, if everybody moved as well as Canelo did by getting to the top of his division and unifying the way he does, we would see all the fights that we wanted to see. It would be so busy. Instead, you got all these champions taking soft touch after soft touch, and then us finding a way to criticize Canelo. I think Terrence Crawford has done a really good job with his career as well. 135, undisputed at 140, 147 with one belt, but he doesn't have that great rival yet. And I'm waiting to see that as well. I would love to see him fight Spence. Those two need each other to get ahead in this type of race. So those are high stakes. If Crawford goes on to beat Spence, then I think it could be equal. But as of right now, he doesn't have that great rival. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua could have a claim to that as well, but they also need to face each other, and somebody needs to come out on top. I think if Tyson Fury beats Joshua, you could make the claim that he's the greatest fighter of that generation. But that remains to be seen. And, we're lucky that these fights are coming up so that we can all take a look and discuss that. But at the end of the day, if you're looking at a resume, if you're looking at accomplishments within a division as far as unifications or number one rankings, you have to say that Canelo is in a comfortable lead currently.
Turn your mic on.
Oh, shit. All right. My bad. All right. The text in this post May-Pac era looks like a collective effort in terms of who's going to be looked at as the best of his generation. Hey, Milcar, who do you got, man? Like who's this next generation guy? This is post Mayweather Pacquiao era, kind of. You know what I mean?
I don't know. It's tough. I have to really think about this. Someone was mentioning Roy Jones earlier on, and it was either in the chat or on here. It's like Roy Jones was knocking out sanitation workers and refusing to fight Darius Michalczewski or Michael. I forget how to pronounce his name.
Michalczewski.
Yeah, Michalczewski. Yeah. I mean, there's always been these guys that are considered to be pound for pound that don't take on everyone in their weight class and weight jump, which is what Roy did. I'm not saying Canelo is avoiding fighters. He definitely hasn't avoided fighters. But I mean, if weight jumping is the only thing here, I mean, Donnie Nietes should be considered for some kind of something. I mean, there's plenty of guys that have gone up in weight and won titles in different divisions. Is he? But yeah, I mean, in terms of being a pay-per-view star, fighting meaningful fights, winning titles in different divisions, I cannot think of anyone higher than him to give that kind of an award to or a status to. Having said that, I'm definitely not saying that there are not other skilled fighters out there, many of whom have already been mentioned. Terrence Crawford being one. And you know, we still can't dismiss Errol Spence and what he might become if he's ever tested by other champions at 147 and decides to test himself at 154. So, you know, I consider that, you know, the early 30s group. Canelo's in that group. Errol Spence is in that group. Terrence Crawford is in that group. Tyson Fury's in that group. And obviously Anthony Joshua's in that group. So, you know, there's a few names out there, and I think we need a year or two more to see how things all play out.
How do you feel about it, Chief Funky?
Yeah, I would have to say he's probably the front runner at this point. But there are some guys that are making some cases. I mean, I know there's a lot of talk of Chocolatito down in the lower weight classes as a guy who was up there high on the pound for pound list. You know, we got a couple of guys like I seen some people in the chat, Teofimo Lopez, who just beat Lomachenko, who was a guy who was considered one of the best pound for pound right now. He's got a real shot and opportunity to put his name in the basket. And you know, like I said, I'm a big guy on Undisputed. So if we get Jose Ramirez or Taylor to become undisputed, you know, they jump in the conversation as well. Jermell Charlo's another guy who's got pretty much all the belts in his division except for one. You know, I hope he can get his hands on that belt as well. And then we got the heavyweights where who knows what's going to happen there. The WBO is starting to pull some weird stuff out, and you know, but that's what I'm more interested in, because you know, I heard a few guys mention already, you know, the weight jumping and stuff like that. It's easy these days to grab a belt in a division with all the belts that they have nowadays. You know, I mean, you can just jump up and pick one of the weakest guys to fight, beat them, and then you become a champion in multi divisions. You know, I mean, you could literally spit shine someone's shoes nowadays and become a champion in a division. You know, like it's not the same as it used to be back when the pound for pound term originated, back when Sugar Ray Robinson was the guy. Like, there's just one belt back then. You know, that's a huge difference than today. So that's why I'm more interested in guys just cleaning out the division. I wish these guys, once they do clean out division, would stay there and reign for a little bit, you know, but that just doesn't happen these days because these guys fight, you know, way below their natural weight. So they don't want to stay there. You know, they want to move up, and, you know, that's their decision, you know. That's why I think these guys should fight closer to the weight they really are, so that they can stay there and reign and say, look, I was undisputed and I was reigning for so many years. I beat so many challengers that came up at me and blah, 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 but it just doesn't happen that way. But there are some guys who can make a run at Canelo, but right now he's definitely got a nice, comfortable lead, in my opinion, as far as who's leading the way after or say this generation. I was going to say the Mayweather Pacquiao era, but this generation for sure.
Absolutely. Hey, make sure you guys throw a jab at my like button. All right. Let's go ahead and get that up. All right. So all that good stuff. Shout out to 92 AKU. Kevin the Carrot has shown up in the chat. Gracing us with his presence. All right. Christine, what do you think? Canelo, front runner, was the best fighter of his generation.
You know, I'm gonna like go a whole different direction and just like throw a boomerang in all of this. So the front runner is gonna be whoever the boxing gods, the powers that be, want to be the front runner. I mean, you got to think about it. The people that have the TV time, the people that can afford to put these fights together. It's like, I mean, just think about it. Think about it when Mayweather was just like the epitome of boxing. He only fought in Vegas. So it's like, if they want Canelo to be the front runner, he's going to be. And the matchmakers, they choose exactly who these people need to fight at the time they need to fight them. Boxing heads, true boxing heads that see skill set of other people know who should be the front runners or should be there. But again, the boxing gods control it all. And like I said, I'm going on a whole different tangent, but like really that's what it is.
Okay. Makes sense. Okay. And 408, how do you feel about it?
Well, Canelo is definitely the front runner at the moment, but that could easily be spoiled by at least a handful of guys. At the top of my list are Jermall Charlo if he moves up to 168. And we heard Canelo this week talk about he would fight Spence at 160. Jermall Charlo is dangerous. You have Bivol, you have Beterbiev at light heavyweight, and of course David Benavidez and Caleb Plant is even a question. Any of those guys could upset this party for Canelo, depending on the timing of when these fights happen. Floyd was so good at waiting until some guys were too old, right? Like he did with Pacquiao. So Canelo can very possibly beat these guys depending on timing, but they could also spoil the party and upset him. And that would leave Terrence Crawford with this pathway for me. I could see Terrence Crawford campaigning at 154 and beating a Patrick Teixeira, becoming another belt holder. Then he can take on the other Charlo brother. And then he could retire at 160, which would make him a divisional. How many championships would he have won across how many weight ranges? He could easily surpass Canelo as well.
Man, Aguas Born Ready was 8 years ago. Man, that's been a while, but I gotta say, in a lot of what you're seeing,
actually 7.
7. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
All right, okay. Let's not get carried away with the corrections now. But look,
Well, I want to throw a shot at 92 AKU. That's my boy. You know, we go way back.
he's always correcting us anyway. Shout out to him. He's our new fact checker, but he's not as good as the old one. You know what I mean? But he's trying. Okay, the effort is what matters. Okay, look, to me, he is the best of his he's going to be the best of his generation, if I were to guess. Right? Obviously, anything could happen. There's still a lot to go, and just to kind of define what I mean by that, the post Mayweather Pacquiao era. I mean, Pacquiao's still around, right? But outside of Pacquiao beating Spence and Crawford and becoming undisputed at 147, which would be mind blowing, right? Outside of something like that. I think Canelo definitely has the reins and the one that's pushing forward here. But we will see. We will see about that. But none of us know the future, so that is that. Okay.
Just to add real quick, Adrian Broner has 4 titles in 4 different divisions.
Very well earned titles. He's from Title Town, baby.
And,
We earn them over here.
and to Geek Monkey's point, I mean, Trevor Bryant beat BJ Flores 2 years ago for a version of the heavyweight title. I mean, it's a totally different era right now.
Yeah, it's a hustle, man. It's just you just pick up a belt and then fight whoever who got it real quick. They become food.
Yeah, you could literally find a belt these days in a box of Cracker Jacks. It's
Clearly
crazy,
they're easy
man.
to get. I mean, look behind me, so.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm not sure what the chat's referring to. Old. I said he's old right now. He is old right now. But maybe I'm missing whoever put that comment. Keep bringing them on, guys. We read through all the comments here and all that good stuff. We're going to switch gears. Speaking of the future, all right, or a possible future prospect here, Berlanga, all right. This is a little bit tough of a question because we've only seen him fight half a round for what is it now? 16 straight fights. So I don't know where to really get the data from to really say, man, that guy. But I just want to get a feeling of how you guys feel. Is he the real deal to you? Milcar, let me start with you. Is Berlanga to you the real deal? Or where do you stand with this guy?
I was having a little fun on the show on Tuesday with David and playing a little fanboy with Berlanga, but I think he's the real deal for what he is. He's a rising prospect. He has yet to take the next step, the contender status. I see him the same way I saw Francisco Pancho Bojado when he was rolling through guys before really being tested. So at this level, he's definitely dominating. It's very difficult to do what he's doing. I mean, Andre Ward spoke about the toughness of his opponent on Saturday. I mean, apparently this guy is a guy that people bring in to training camps to spar because of how long he lasts in camps. It's not my words, it was Andre Ward's words. So, and he wasn't expecting the dude to get knocked out in the first round. So I think he's an exciting prospect. I think his punching power is real. Whether it translates to the next step, which is kind of contender status, that's where I think the question really lies. And I think that's an open question.
Okay. 408. Let me go to you here. How do you feel about Berlanga? Are you sold on him? You know, and if you were to guess, you know, do you think he's a real deal?
You know, I was shout out to Raw Boxing TV that we were having this discussion yesterday on his channel. For me, he's very exciting, and he's most likely going to be my prospect of the year. That video that circulated social media yesterday, Berlanga's gotten really, and some people will describe him as cocky recently with the performance he's put on this year. He's still going to merit prospect of the year based on what he's done. I feel like there was a backlash. Like some people went up digging up all his amateur fights to see somewhere where he was embarrassed. But if you watch that video, you'll see that he's clearly not the same fighter in that amateur fight. He's not the same guy anymore. So I'm looking forward to what he does next year, and he definitely needs to step up the competition. He is getting kind of braggadocious, but hopefully he will continue to prove it in the ring next year in 2021.
Christine, going back to you. How do you feel about it?
You know what he is. I've seen him since he was a kid. In youth, he won a gold. In juniors, he would win silver and bronze. I heard braggadocious. He's always been that way. He and his dad were very, I don't want to use cocky, but kind of. And he was very skilled. I didn't ever see him in the elite division. But as far as the youth and the junior, he was cleaning it up. And so I've known his name for many, many years. Do I think he's truly talented? Yes. Do people want to see more? Do they want to see him against somebody? Yes. If I were his people, I would probably put him against a Darrell next, you know, just to kind of see where he's at and test his skill set. And then from there, move on, because yes, he is talented. He's very heavy-handed in both hands. I think his defense is mediocre, but he is skillful, and I do see him doing more. I do. He's going to do big things.
All right. Okay. Boxing Wave, throwing it back to you here. What do you think about Berlanga?
Mixed reviews because I actually really like him. I just hope that well, first of all, I think the 1-round knockout thing, I think is amazing promo for him. He's becoming a celebrity based off this, you know, really fast, and I think that's good. Now all eyes are on him. I'm expecting him to step up this year as far as the opposition. Going into this fight this past weekend, that guy he fought was an upgrade, okay? Because I do remember looking up this guy before the fight, and I didn't think he would get the 1-round stoppage again. So I was surprised that he got it. But one thing with him is I hope he doesn't let these knockouts get to his head, because these guys his power is real. That's the one thing we know about him. His power is obviously real. It's just that he hasn't fought anyone that's capable of neutralizing that power. And I hope he just doesn't just believe in the hype. You know, I mean, the hype could be real, but we don't know yet. You know what I'm saying? We like what we're seeing. I know I like what I'm seeing with him. I just want to see how he looks when he has to fight rounds. You know, is he going to get tired? I recently compared him to Anthony Yard. You know, I just hope that, let's say the sanctioning body he's in, they don't move him up to be the #1 contender before fighting a real fighter, and he gets exposed in the championship fight. I hope that wouldn't happen. You know, so all I want is to see rounds from him. We know that he can knock people out at this point. That's cool. But I just want to see a little bit more before, you know, I say like he's this or that. I know he looks good, and I think the knockouts are great, but I want to see if he could go rounds too. That's all I'm waiting for. And I think piggybacking on the rail comment, I think I think he might can beat Darrell now, maybe, but I think Darrell is still a little too soon because Darrell was recently a champion. I think that's a huge jump up. I think he should have a few steps before even fighting a Darrell, even right now.
I think Rocky Fielding is a good opponent for him.
I think so too.
I mentioned David Lemieux as another guy who had heavy hands.
He can have a beat the clock challenge. You know, like, can he knock him out sooner than Canelo did? You know what I mean? But those are good opponents right there. I mean, I don't know though, because these are still like top 15, top 20 fighters you guys are throwing out there, and I don't know if he's ready for that. But let's see what someone else thinks here. Beeb, what are your thoughts on Berlanga? Like, are you sold?
No, not at all. I think the power is real, but I'm skeptical about everything else. He is knocking out guys that have never been knocked out before, but these guys still pose no threat. It sort of reminds me, if you go back in history, John Mugabe, when he had all those knockouts in a row, and then he faced Marvin Hagler, and then he got knocked out by Marvin Hagler. And then he got knocked out in his next fight after that by Dwayne Thomas. So when you're winning one way and you're not forced to have to do other things, and you're facing a certain level of opposition, and you're being moved in a way, it's almost like these guys are setup fights. And I understand that when you're developing somebody, it's a progression. But he's been stuck on this same level of guys that he's supposed to beat. Definitely can punch. Can he box? Can he come back from adversity? Defense doesn't look great. I mean, he kind of comes in and everything he throws is with power. There's no – it's like one gear. It's like 0 to 100 real quick, and that's what you're getting. You're not getting different levels, different types of ways of setting up these knockouts. He's just steamrolling guys, sort of like what John Mugabe did. Same thing. And then he got in there with a guy who could fight, who was well-rounded. And you saw what happened. Marvin Hagler destroyed John Mugabe, took him apart. So I don't think he's the real deal. I think that he's a puncher, but I don't think that he's that well-rounded fighter. I just don't see it in him. I don't see any besides the punching power. I don't see anything else that's dynamic.
Right, let's go to your partner in crime, from Ringside Reporter Eric. Are you sold on Berlanga?
Well, I always hate to agree with B, but I'm going to have to in this instance. No, I'm not sold on him at all, man. We talked about this on our last show, and listen, man, he's got 16 knockouts. We haven't seen him in 16 minutes, or 16, what rounds. I mean, he's went 61 round. It's like one for every first round. Every fight, he's got a first round knockout. He's not fought anyone. They're not doing him any favors. Marketing, they're doing him a great job. They're doing him a great service via marketing. You want to see this guy? He's like Tyson, blah blah blah. I saw him get hit, and we were talking about this in that fight with Sierra. We saw him get hit, clean up the middle almost every time when he was coming in. He didn't look like he had much of a defense. Now, could that be because he's not worried about what was coming back in that fight? Yeah, that could be, absolutely. What is he going to do when a guy can take his shot? That's what I always ask when a guy is cleaning house like this. What is he going to do when a guy can take his shot? I don't know. And and unfortunately, like I said, he's not getting any rounds, so he's not learning anything in these fights. So yeah, I'm not sold on him at all. Listen, I hope he turns out to be the next big thing. I really do. But he's still got a long way to go, I guess. From my standpoint anyway, I'm not real sold.
Right. Chief Fucky, talk to us. Are you sold?
Not yet. And I'm not trying to be negative about the kid because he's only had 16 fights. It's kind of rare to see guys doing big things in just 16 fights. But I'm hoping that they can continue to push him in the right way. I think what they're doing here is good for the kid's brand. He's starting to gain a lot of attention. And the thing is this, man, I'm a little selfish when it comes to these things, but I miss the old Mexico versus Puerto Rico rivalry in boxing. So I'm hoping that they continue to grow this kid so that we can get him in there with a couple of these guys at 168. There's some good Mexican fighters around there that he could get his hands on in the next couple of years. I mean, I seen shout out to Rob Boxing in the chat. He said Chavez Jr. Now, I don't like Chavez Jr., but he's a name. He's from Mexico. They could throw him in there with him and see what he does. Hopefully Chavez doesn't quit before he gets KO'd.
He will.
But yeah, there's been talk of a possible Jaime Munguia coming up from 160. I think that's another good fight for a guy like Berlanga. And if he gets past those guys and keeps winning, I mean, there's El Bandera Roja, that he could fight. And if he beats him, then hey, there's always the top guy, Canelo Alvarez, and but that's a long way ahead. But I'm just saying, if they continue to grow him and he gets to that point, those would be huge fights. But as far as what I see now, I mean, yeah, there are some flaws that I see. I feel like sometimes, especially in his last fight, I feel like he was really looking for that first round KO, and he left himself open to get hit with some shots and things like that. From what I'm hearing, there's some things that he's chinny or something like that. I did see a video recently of him getting dropped in the amateurs. I mean, that could happen in the amateurs. To me, I'm not really concerned about that. Now, as far as his gas tank goes, shout out to Cano Loco, who's the main guy when it comes to Puerto Rican boxing here on YouTube, says there's no issue with that in the gym, that you can go plenty of rounds. So let's just continue to see this kid grow. I'm not going to be too harsh on him yet until I see him in there with somebody for real, and then we'll see how he looks. But as of right now, I don't really have an issue with it. And am I sold on him yet? No, not yet. I need to see more,
Yeah, I hear you, and I hear a lot of you guys, man. Christine, I mean, you say you've known him, right? Cano says he knows about Berlanga. A lot of people are vouching for Berlanga. I'm not even joking. Like people come out and they vouch for this dude. Yo, I know he could box. Just watch. Here's my only issue, right? If Michael Jordan never played in the NBA, right? And Magic Johnson told me, oh no, but he would have been the best. Well, I don't know, right? Obviously, Berlanga is engaging in boxing fights. However, one round and most of them not even half a round, I don't have enough data to really assess myself, right? I'm not there with Berlanga. I haven't seen him from the amateurs. I seen that clip when he got dropped in the amateurs, and that was going to be following him around for a while until somebody clips him and we find out. Because let me just tell you this right now. Power. It is magnetic to the steel of our desires as boxing fans. We fall in love with power. A lot of boxing fans, they see the guys dropping like flies, and guess what? It's like magnetic to the steel of our fucking beating heart. You know what I mean? And we fall in love with that. I ain't gonna fall in love with the power. I'm just not until I see him really show me more. I need to see it. I'm gonna see it until I believe it. I'm not this kind of local sports. Shout out to him or what Christine is telling me. I understand you're vouching for him, but I just need to see it for myself. That's where I stand with it. Let me see it, because let me tell you, a lot of punchers, they're cursed with a bad chin. Just a quick story. My grandfather, one of his favorite fighters was Pajarito Moreno. All right. This is the guy that his first 29 opponents, his first 29 wins were by knockout. He did lose like 2 in between that, but this was a featherweight. But once he stepped up in competition, every time he got knocked out. Okay, and so that's just how I feel about that. Until he proves to me that he's not going to follow in that same line of chinny punchers, until I understand that, then we will see. But he's definitely excited to watch, though. Chicano, talk to us. Are you sold on Berlanga? And I know you have a little bit of an issue with his catchweight thing. If you want to touch on that just a little bit.
Oh, well, that's just me being petty. Some people like to criticize Canelo for having these special catch weights. But Berlanga, he considers himself a super middleweight, but he has his own 169-pound weight class for 3 consecutive fights. And I'm hearing the excuses. The thing is, he's getting the best of both worlds. Like, well, he's young, so that's okay. He gets passes for a lot of things. I keep hearing, this guy's ready for the big time. Well, Ulysses Sierra, he's used to doing 10-rounders. They're doing 8-rounders for Edgar Berlanga. Now, granted, he doesn't need 8 rounds. And I like what I see so far. From what I can tell, he's got the power, but I don't know if he can take a shot. I don't know much about his defense. But we all love KOs. And so he's exciting. And I also want to see Puerto Rico succeed in boxing. Like, I miss the rivalry as well. I think that we need more information before we assess him. But Edgar Berlanga is doing the right things because we're all here talking about him. I think he needs to slow down with the hype just a little bit. But you make money off your haters too. So if I'm starting to just naturally hate on the guy because I see double standards with him, that's fine. I mean, I still like him anyways. And I say move him up a little bit. Like I say, give him a mid-tier opponent to where he can get those rounds in. And there's nothing wrong with moving him up quickly. My understanding is that he's been boxing since he was 7. Mm-hmm. And there are 23-year-olds that are world champions now doing 12 rounds now. Like, the only thing slowing him down are his people or him, but he says he's ready for 12, even though he doesn't need those rounds. I'd like to see those rounds. Like, let's see you move up. Let's see you do 12 rounds. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we're starting to talk. That's what he says. He says he wants cash. And I mean, if they can make it happen, that's great. So, like I said, I still need to see a little bit more from him before I make the assessment if he's the real deal.
Afro-Rican G, he says, I just hope he stays focused and doesn't let fame get to him. That's one thing we can't deny about Canelo. He stays focused. Well said. Another thing, I mean, look, I just want to throw this out there really quick. He's bragging about the 2.2 million that watched his fight. Bro, that was a carryover crowd from the college game. Come on. Okay? Come on. Like, we all know that was from the college game. Like, it was smart. Okay? He's technically not wrong. Yeah. But, what made Teofimo Lopez and against Lomachenko impressive is that boxing was on for 3 freaking hours. And it did, almost 3 million viewers. That's what made that impressive. Like, they literally had every intention to watch that fight. It wasn't a carryover crowd, okay? But with that said, let's go ahead and, keep it on Berlanga. Oh, somebody want to add something? Yeah,
one last thing, D-Style, and it's that I think the New York factor is obviously a big factor too. I mean,
yes,
everything's bigger when it comes to New York. Let's just be real, right? I remember when the Chin Checkers came out, Jadon Codrington and Curtis Stevens. There's a lot of hype around those two guys, and look at what happened to Jadon. I mean, he was a power puncher, and look at ended up what happened to the career of Curtis Stevens, also a big power puncher with the media attention. ESPN is here in New York. I know they say it's Bristol, but obviously they cover a lot of New York stuff. So there's always that big element coming out of New York City that I think is a factor as well.
Well said. Anybody wanted to add anything?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, and what about Andre Rozier being his new trainer? I mean, that adds a lot to him. I mean, so wherever because I've seen his defense. I don't think it's great. But I think Andre can add so much to it, and I think that over the years, we're going to see bigger and better from him, my opinion.
Okay.
Somebody was saying in the comments, Gabe Rosado. I think that would be a great test for him.
And Gabe Rosado turned it down already respectfully. He was kind of towing the line. He's not interested in that. He told, I think Gabe Rosado doesn't see himself as a gatekeeper at the moment.
Oh, you're a gatekeeper, bro. You're literally at the gate.
That Daniel Jacobs fight.
He won that last fight. Sorry, guys. He won that last fight.
He beat Danny Jacobs. He beat Danny Jacobs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The guard dog doesn't think he's a guard dog either. But guess what?
Jacobs lost that fight.
He's a guard dog.
He did. He lost.
Well, we're gonna stay. I know 408. You wanted to add something, I believe.
Yeah, I've interviewed young Xander Zayas, a top rank 147-pound prospect. That's really exciting, and he specifically has told me he sees himself. He sees himself in the future headlining events with Berlanga in Madison Square Garden. Like, that's a goal to them to fill the shoes that Miguel Cotto did at the Square.
I see it
at the Garden, right?
Okay. Out at the Garden. All right. Well, we will see where that goes. We're going to stay on Berlanga here, and I want to go to you, Christine. because I think you'll have an interesting take on this as a coach. All right. The Lubin Berlanga sparring video somehow got leaked. Now, credit to Lubin. He did tweet out, "Yo, my dude can't punch," and talking shit about him, yada. But it still got out there. But not just this, but what are your overall thoughts on sparring footage getting leaked? It just gets leaked out there, and just give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I don't like it. I mean, sparring and an actual fight are totally different. I mean, they are. We don't know what Berlanga did before he sparred. Was that his, 12th round of sparring? Was that his fourth opponent? I mean, we don't know what was going on, and there's nothing. It was like 1 minute of sparring. I don't like that. With my guys and my girls, we don't post sparring because sparring, that's school. That's where you fix your mistakes and, you capitalize on the things you can do good. You hide the things that you don't do well. I have no respect for people that leak the sparring videos because it says nothing to me. I'm not a fan of it at all.
I'm right there with you.
Chief, talk to us. Well, what are your thoughts on it, man?
No, I feel the same exact way. People that over exaggerate these leaked sparring footages are just they don't know anything about what goes on in boxing gyms. They've probably never put on gloves. They've never sparred a day in their life. Like they just over exaggerated. They're just being fanboys because one of their guys did something to this guy or a guy that they hate looked bad in sparring.
Yep.
Like to me, the footage I seen, it looked like Berlanga was exhausted at that point. He looked really tired. It looked like he probably went, so many rounds, and Lubin's probably not the only guy that he was in the ring with that day.
Absolutely.
So these guys, I mean, they overdo it with this stuff, and I'm not a big fan of the sparring footage. I mean, if one of the most famous leaked sparring footage is out there didn't teach us anything, then I don't know what will, and that's the footage between Floyd Mayweather and Paul Spadafora. I mean, that was a huge thing back in the day. But I mean, come on, are we really going to think that Spadafora is going to beat Mayweather?
He's not 50-1.
He should be 50-1. I mean, Spadafora beat him in sparring. So let's just go ahead, Christine. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say this really quick too. Also, we work on different things. I mean, were they working on close distance? And Berlanga was working on his defense. I mean, there's middle distance, there's long distance, there's certain things that we work on in sparring, and we're working on the bags. And then someone just comes and like takes a little, video of whatever, and you don't even know what's going on. So that's another reason why I just hate it. Like, what were they working on? Was he working on his defense? At close distance? I mean, what was it? I don't like it at all.
All right. Boxing Wave. Talk to us, man. Well, what are your thoughts on, leaking of sparring and all that good stuff?
Timing. Somebody really jealous leaked that video because this kid is getting all of that attention right now. Mm-hmm. And they figure, you know what, let's shut some of that down. Let's put this video out, and it's really, really messed up. I don't know when that sparring session actually occurred. It doesn't really matter to me. I've been saying this for years, and I know a lot of it has to do with social media, but it's just too many of them that's being posted. If both of the fighters want to put it out there because it was good, like I really enjoyed Stevenson and Haney's sparring thing, but remember, it was leaked a few years prior. Then they took it down, and then eventually they put it up, and it was great to watch. But I just don't like how they did it right now while he's building, he has the momentum going. And that's what it was all about. I don't know if it was, it might have not been Lubin, but it might have been somebody in his camp. I don't know who it was, but somebody felt the way about the attention this kid was getting, and they put the video out there, and it's not right because we don't know what that sparring, just like she was saying, we don't know what they were doing there. We don't know who he was fighting before that. We don't know if they were working on some things. We have no idea what's going on. We see a small clip and everybody's going crazy now, and I think that was really messed up. And I'm tired of, what, most of the time when someone's getting exposed or, when the internet is going crazy about some sparring footage being leaked, most of the time I don't even watch it because it doesn't affect how I'm going to feel in a fight. I'm not going to go to the sparring to decide what I think, what direction a fight is going to go. I don't go to the spar. I never do because I don't know what's going on that day. and it's headgear. It's not the same thing. It's just not. Any fighter will tell you that it's not the same thing. A lot of guys that got dominated by people in sparring and in a real fight, they got destroyed. So it doesn't really matter to me. And I wish this would really stop. It's like she said, it's like school. What are you leaking that for? It's all about the timing, and that's how I feel. I don't like it at all, man. And it doesn't, and by the way, it doesn't change how I feel about Edgar at all. It doesn't mean anything to me,
That's right. In the words of Iverson, we're talking about practice. You know what I mean? But Eric from Inside Reporter, talk to us, man. What are your thoughts on this, man? The Lubin thing, and also just in general.
I'll echo what everybody else has said. It means next to nothing. I mean, it really does. You don't know what context it took. You don't know when. You don't know what in context. Was he helping him get ready for a fight? Was he mimicking his style? There's a billion variables there. And let's just say it was, we were sparring. It was one-on-one and this happened. It was sparring. You don't know if the guy was in shape. You don't know if the guy was trained. You don't know anything about it other than this guy got, knocked down or whatever. I don't, quite honestly, like, I hate when this stuff comes out. I don't ever watch it because it's just like, just drama for drama's sake. They just want to get excited about something, or it means absolutely nothing. I mean, it really does.
Now, Foray, I want to go to you because I know you watch MMA as well. I've seen this very common with mixed martial arts as well. I don't think they have the same, like, kind of, I'll let you kind of answer that, but to me, it doesn't seem they have the same negative kind of feel about it.
Right after you bring up MMA, I'm thinking about how Paulie Malignaggi had signed a non-disclosure agreement, and then Conor McGregor turns on him and releases footage that showed a favorable light. Look what I'm doing to a professional boxer. But on the other hand, as much as I think it's a negative stain on the sport of boxing to release this to the masses with social media, what did that David Hay video with Deontay Wilder tell us or foresee in the future about Wilder? I don't like them. I don't think they're good to push out, but we'll probably see much more of this with these YouTubes and celebrities engaging in fights now. I won't be surprised if a YouTuber releases sparring of them doing well against a professional boxer. I mean, that might be the next thing we see. And again, that's not good for the sport of boxing.
All right. Well said. Well said. Milcar, just to kind of switch it a little bit, because I understand nobody likes it, right? And so not so much what you get out of it, right? But I want to ask you, like, do you think, like, to piggyback off of what Foray just said, is this going to be a new culture now? Is there a culture shift where it's going to become more acceptable now to release sparring footage? Because what we're seeing now, we're living in this kind of era of like, oh, he owned him and all this other stuff, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, times have definitely changed. When I was like training in boxing and an amateur, like, people didn't really walk around everywhere with a video camera in their phone recording everything. Parents and girlfriends and whatever were still like videotaping on, camcorders and stuff, the digital ones. I just want to make sure that the clip I was sent today is the clip that all of you are talking about, because the clip I saw wasn't of sparring; it was of like an amateur fight. Is that what you guys are?
There's the one where he was knocked out in the amateur. So, I mean, you can comment on that if you want as well.
I think that's fair game. If you get knocked out in a fight and somebody's recorded it, if they want to put it up, it's you were boxing in a public venue at a fight. I don't have any problems with that. Sparring is a little bit different, obviously. It's usually private, and good coaches tell their fighters to work on things that they are actually weaker at in sparring. So you're working on improving deficiencies usually. So if you're specifically working on that and someone's taking advantage of it, or not taking advantage of it, but doing what they're supposed to do, it's what was said earlier. It's supposed to be a learning experience more than anything. But yeah, I mean, I expect to see a lot of this, and it's happening in all sports. Stuff is being released from behind the scenes, from locker rooms, from restaurants. You know, you got players, basketball players, telling stories on other basketball players and talking about relationships. And this is just where our society is going. So, you know, it's unfortunate, but it's kind of the social dilemma, isn't it?
So this is
can
the
I
video.
just say something?
Yes, of course.
Can I
Go
just
ahead.
say something really quick? I was just going to say that the top coaches or coaches that have experience, I mean, you absolutely cannot bring your phone or camera or video into the gym during sparring. I mean, it's absolutely forbidden. Some of the coaches that may not have as much experience or whatever, they don't say anything, but you will get kicked out of the gym. You will, you know, not be allowed. So it's, or we'd see it more often, honestly.
Right. No, definitely. And Chicano, as I'm playing it there, you know, can you give us, you know, your perspective here?
Well, I do like seeing sparring footage. So, like, you know, if I want to see Berlanga get pieced up, I can get my fix. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I can tell you that, you know, it's interesting to kind of watch sparring. I've seen sparring as amongst some high level fighters that are now 22, 23, and it's really fascinating to watch. But I already see that they've evolved, and I don't really take too much into like looking at it and assessing what's going to happen now if two fighters face each other now that they're professionals and they're way more developed. So, like you all were saying, you've all said it best already. So to me, sparring is just sparring. But I do like seeing it still. It gives us hardcore boxing fans something else to look at. And I also like seeing
shout out to
amateur fights
Tracy,
as well.
AK Boxer Girl. Joe Habib, man. I mean, again, we're in this era now where, you know, let's say I give you a camera, right, and I'm sparring G Funky, and I tell you, hey, like, turn on the camera. I'm gonna go hard. He like, we're going. I told him we're gonna go light. I'm gonna go hard. I'm gonna try to knock his head off, and then like when he starts hitting me back, to stop the camera. You know what I mean? Like, can anybody just do that? But just in general, what are your thoughts on this, babe?
I think it's the corniest thing ever, and it means nothing. And you know, it's not only just with the camera. You always hear fighters now talk about these sparring stories, how I did this to this guy in sparring, how I did this to that guy in sparring. Back in the day, fighters never talked about sparring. Larry Holmes used to spar Muhammad Ali during the tail end of Muhammad Ali's career. I'm sure that he held his own, and there's probably some days he got the better of the greatest. Now, if that happened today with today's fighters, oh, Muhammad Ali is supposed to be the greatest fighter of all time, but I kicked his ass in sparring. Like, Larry Holmes was honored to spar Muhammad Ali. He was there to help. It's work. Okay, no one goes into a sparring session with the same mentality that they go into when they're under the lights and they got the referee there, they got judges on the outside of the ring. It's a different ballgame. There's tons of fighters that I've seen that are great gym fighters, but when you put them under the lights, they weren't the same. So it's not the same thing. It's just not. It's a difference between playing like street basketball and organized basketball. It's different. It's just a different thing. And when fighters talk about that, I just think it's the corniest thing ever. I think it's disrespectful. You know, Errol Spence sparred Floyd Mayweather, and he'd be asked questions about, oh, did you do? Floyd Mayweather got a black eye? Did you beat him up? Whatever. He showed respect and said, "Nah, no, it was just good work. Whatever." There's just it's kind of like a fighter looking for an edge because he feels as though maybe he needs something to get attention to make himself look better. It's almost a sign of insecurity, in my opinion, that you're going to point and grasp at straws at anything just to try to make yourself look good, whether it's relevant or not. It's just meaningless. It really is. And I just think it's so stupid, foolish, and corny every time I hear these sparring wars because they mean nothing.
Absolutely. Shout out to Coach K in the chat joining us here. And the shoe shining, doing double duty. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about. Anybody have anything to add in regards to sparring before I ask you guys one more question?
I would like to just touch a little bit on what Beeb just said about how guys look like $1 million in sparring, but then you get them in a real fight and they look like, 5'9" of dog crap. You know, like it just happens sometimes. You know, like I told the story last night on my channel from my experience in my hometown at Capital Boxing Gym. There was a young kid who wasn't even a professional yet. Went in there, gave this guy who was preparing for a big fight, gave him some work, and I'm telling you, he looked like damn Sugar Ray Leonard in there against this guy, against a professional. Had this guy bleeding and everything after the sparring session was over. You know, and we were all kids at the time. We were like either, you know, 18, 19, something like that. We were real young, so we were like real impressed with what we saw. But then when this kid finally got a chance to become a professional, he wasn't nothing. Like those things never translated over. So I mean, it's just one of those things, man. Sparring is sparring.
It's mental.
And yeah, let's just stop over exaggerating it, please.
Yeah. So many factors to take in mind. I mean, you know, keep in mind sometimes when a guy is having a training camp, they'll throw in like somebody in for 3 rounds. They'll take them out, put somebody in there with them again for 3 rounds. Well, you know, that's a fresh guy boxing somebody that's, you know, already put in some work. And it could be for different reasons, whether it's to work on their stamina, to give them different looks, different styles, whatever it is. I mean, you know, is one guy, you know, closer to his, you know, optimum, you know, time to fight, and is the other guy just starting the training camp? I mean, there's so many variables to go through, you know, and I think us as boxing fans doing what a lot of us did here, you know, not taking it serious is the answer, because if we convey that, oh yeah, you get him, champ, you know, yeah, he beat him, he's better. If you engage in it, then boxers are going to keep doing it, you know, at the end of the day. So, one more thing I wanted to touch on here, because last week Christine got blitzed by Nate Campbell live on the air. Right, Christine. I'm sure there'll be some different opinions here, but talk to us about the hashtag We Keep Fighting.
Hey, I took on the 3-time champ. I can handle anything.
I want to talk about women's pay, because I got to tell you, man, I keep hearing, pay me more if you want me to fight more rounds. Pay me more, pay me more. I mean, you know, talk to us, you know, what about this hashtag?
You know, I don't so much agree with that. Like, I think that people should be paid, men or women, should be paid what they're worth. You know, in the amateurs, women fight 3 minutes. So why not do it in the pros? You know, one of the complaints was there aren't any knockouts, they're not very exciting. Well, yeah, they're 2 minutes. I think that if they were 3-minute rounds, that we would see some knockouts. I hate to see like a Clarissa Shields, even though, you know, the champ wasn't a fan of Clarissa. You cannot take the fact that she won 2 gold medals in the Olympics away from her. You know, I think that it's really sad that she feels she doesn't have a platform or a home, so she has to move to MMA. Not that there's anything wrong with that, you know, but she's feeling that she has to go there because boxing doesn't have a home for her. If she chose to just do that on her own, okay, that's one thing. But not feeling wanted in her own sport is a totally different thing. You know, I had mentioned that maybe there would be more little girls wanting to be boxers if we had more women on a bigger platform, on TV, you know, on a bigger stage. When I was coming up, I was so interested in being a boxer, and I'm going to age myself, but Christy Martin is my age and Wolf is younger than I. So I didn't have those role models. Well, what about those girls? You know, what about the girls that are coming up? Who do they have to look at so that we could possibly get more girls involved? In my gym, I have like, you know, I don't know, 2% women, you know, compared to the rest that are men. How do we draw more women into this? How do we say, you know what, it's okay if you want to be a boxer. You don't have to be, you know, in gymnastics or tap or ballet. It's okay to want to box. I think that's my whole perspective and my whole point, and the reason why I talk on it, because I was one of those girls, you know, I wanted to box. And I know one of the comments was on the last show was nobody wants to see, you know, 2 girl-looking boys boxing each other. It's really boring. Well, there's very many beautiful boxers. I mean, you know, Franchon Cruz, Michaela Mayer. There's very many. And they are very ladylike. And I think the problem that I see and that I've heard, you know, when I talk to men, it's like they like Nate said, he didn't want to see two boy-looking women. Well, what do they want? Do they want like, you know, stuff falling out, you know, the volleyball shorts, and then they're going to be more interested, or do they want to see purely boxing? So
The gorgeous ladies of wrestling glow.
but okay, but there are some gorgeous women that want to box, and there are some that some may not are so gorgeous, you know, whatever. But we shouldn't have to conform to a stereotype. If you want to box, box. And if you want to box, we should have the support that the men have as well. That's just totally, you know, my message.
That would be like saying all men boxers have to look like Fabio.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And that's not fair. It's
I
not
mean, what
fair.
happened in the world?
Huge double standard. Huge
Some people
double
don't know who
standard.
Fabio is, but we do.
Yeah, how do you know that? Who is that, Beeb?
He's a male
Google
model.
him. Google him.
He's an Italian male model, built like a Greek god. Looks
He's
like
got a
Yes.
post up, he's
he
got
looks
all
like
the
he looks like Eric Lauder.
I want to
Yeah,
ask
that's true.
some people
Very
that were
true.
not on the panel last week for this discussion. So let's go with you, Eric Lorda. Talk to us, man. We hear like Heather Hardy is tweeting out, "I want equal pay," and I'm not going to give up until all this. But what are your thoughts on that?
He doesn't like Heather Hardy.
Let me tell you something. Every time this is bad for me because every time I mention this topic, I end up sleeping on the couch. This is just it's not a good topic, and my wife hates.
Don't
my
sleep
take
on the couch
this.
tonight.
Yeah, I mean, my wife hates my topic on this whole thing, man.
Oh wow!
But look, man, I mean, it's you have to make a name for yourself. You have to become popular. If people don't want to watch you, they're not going to pay to see you, and that's just that. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's your appeal. It's about, it's not even the way you fight. It really isn't. But but you take a look, but I think a lot of it has to do with promotion. You take a look at the UFC.
Absolutely.
You take a look at, like, say, Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate, all those people are like household names. You know all of them. Amanda Nunes, you know all of who I think is the best fighter on the planet, period. End of story. You take all of those fighters, they know how to promote them. They don't know how to promote them over here. They don't know how to promote them in boxing. And until you get somebody who wants to promote them, you never, Ronda Rousey headlined that pay-per-view. She headlined it, but they put a strong card around it too. They don't do that here. What do we have? We had three lady fights. We had 3 lady fights that absolutely nobody was interested in. Mainstream people were not interested in. Let me clarify that. Mainstream people were not interested in. Until you learn how to promote it, until you start taking lessons from the UFC, you're never gonna, it'll never happen for you guys. It'll never happen for boxing, man.
Okay, all right. That was,
and
you shouldn't sleep on the sofa for that. That was a safe.
I agree.
They're great points. It definitely starts with the promotions. It definitely starts with the promotions. And I will have to say, also my argument last show was there's some boring men boxers, that get in there. So why don't we insert, the promoters insert, one bout of women boxing so that people can be more interested or whatever? Because like I told the champ, I was like, you know what, you're going to pay for these boring fights of men, but you don't want to pay for what you say is boring fights for women. It's like, so why not? Like, why not do that if you're going to already watch a boring fight in your mind?
When you put 2 fighters in there that are at the same level, there's a slim chance sometimes that a knockout's going to occur because they're both high level fighters and they're both great fighters and they both are skilled enough where they can learn how, they can survive. So it's not, when Spence fought Garcia, that went the distance. That wasn't a knockout, So,
well, I want to get Boxing Wave's perspective on this, man. You as a boxing fan, a longtime boxing fan, how do you personally feel? I think the one thing people aren't talking are solutions. Like, what do you think needs to be done? And do you want anything done for women's boxers to get more, get closer to the pay scale or to achieve what they want to achieve?
Well, to be honest, it's not going to happen overnight. First of all, it's not going to just happen. You just can't make it equal pay just by just wanting it. I agree with what Eric said. Definitely need more promotion. I think they do a great job promoting Katie Taylor, as far as the boxers are concerned, so I think they need to do better with the American female boxers here. I do go to a lot of fights here in New York. I know when Heather Hardy usually fights in New York, she's on the undercard, but a lot of people in New York will come out. They need to find a way to make that a bigger thing outside of just like New York. I don't know how, but promotion needs to be a better thing like they do in the UFC. But the pay, I know the pay is just not going to happen. Equal pay is not going to happen unless people are able to generate the money. One thing I will say though is I don't think it's just because it's just a female thing. I don't think boxing fans are just neglecting it because it's female boxing. I think a lot of females, if females were into female boxing like men were, it would do better. It's just that like everybody that I know that watch female boxing are men. I don't know any females that would be interested in watching it. I'm not saying, I don't want to like generalize, but I'm just being real based on my experience and the fans that know. There's not a lot of females that I know that want to kick it and watch the female fights, except the ones that actually box or that's really, you know what I'm saying? So it's not many.
Sure.
There needs, just like I feel the same way I've said this about the WNBA years ago. I said, why don't they want to watch their, females want to watch the WNBA? Like, I'm not talking about the girls that played ball in school. I'm talking about females in general. So that's how I feel about that.
Chicano, and really good points, by the way, Boxing Wave. And Chicano, talk to us, man. Well, how do you feel about this?
Oh, yeah. Well, I agree with Boxing Wave. Like, I'm a boxing head. I got friends that are boxing heads. And all of our old ladies, like, honestly, because they're not here, so I can just tell you, like, they don't really care much for women's boxing. They find it to be boring. And granted, they haven't seen the best of the best fight. Like, there are some really good matches that I've liked. They just haven't had the opportunity to see them. So I do think that they need more exposure in general. I think that there are good ways to market female boxers. I think Clarissa Shields does it her way. She says, hey, she's loud. She says she could take on men. She says she could beat Triple G. And I think that caught some attention. Then, there's also the Katie Taylor side of things where she's a good role model. So you see both sides of it. And I think that they're doing good things, but I do think that the market dictates how much they're going to get paid. And it's kind of a conversation that we're having all the time, like women's pay. Like I've seen multiple times where, when women come on, like that's what we ask them. Is it because we don't know enough about these females in general anyways? Like, is it our responsibility to be asking these questions every week when we have these women on here? Like they got to do it themselves. And that's just how I feel about it.
Okay. 408, talk to us, man. I mean, you see it from both ends, right? MMA, what does MMA do that works, that boxing needs to do?
Well, one thing that nobody pointed out about Ronda's success story was that she had a series of fights where she ended them in some way or another in a devastating fashion and quickly. And that's something that we haven't really seen with female boxing in the past 5 years, where a star has emerged like a Gennady Golovkin, a knockout artist, or an Edgar Berlanga who's just destroying her opponents. It's such a heavy issue. I don't know what can be done to grow the sport. I do want to add, I met Franchon Cruz and her husband on the night she won her championship, and she's they're lovely people,
Absolutely.
And I think she's doing all she can. And I know Oscar is her promoter, but a lot of that falls on the promoter too. And the best blueprint so far is kind of what happened with Ronda. There was magic. She had that streak where she was invincible, appeared invincible. She was practically on the Wheaties box and headlining the cover of magazines. I'm waiting for a star like that to emerge. I really don't know the answer to that, though.
Yeah, look, like me, I do what I can, right? I'll bring women on my platform, women boxers, and that's all I could do. I can't force people to watch it. I can't I can't go get all you boxing heads and force you to watch the damn fights. You know what I mean? But here's the other thing. Even if I could do that, how many of them are they putting on TV? Baby, you propose this just really quick because we're going to wrap it up in a little bit. But, Are you for, and the rest of the panel either nod your head or shake your head, okay?
I want to jump into this too, D-Star.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You're next on Milcar, but
Right.
I want to ask you this, B, because you brought this up. Should they force at least one women fight on some of these boxing cards on television?
I'm not against it at all. I think it would be a great idea to have a women's fight on every single card. It's the only way you're going to grow. It's the only way you're going to give them exposure.
Okay. But do you want it to be like a rule, like you got to do it? You know what I mean?
I wouldn't be against it. Yeah, I would support it.
Let me get a quick yes or no before I go to Milcar. Christine, are you for that? Yes or no?
I am. I just want to say really quick, you guys are not the problem. You have all mentioned it. It's the women that are the problem. And I said this last time, we are very funny creatures. For some reason, whatever it is, we don't support each other. And I think it's horrible. And that's why I'm on the show. That's why I do what I do, because I feel like we need to support each other. It's a sisterhood. We don't need to be jealous. We don't need to say, oh my gosh, there's only one plate of food. There's a big table. We can all eat.
Okay. All right. And Chad, by the way, you're already doing it, but just to reiterate, yes or no, should it be done? Foray, yes or no? Should they do it?
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Wow. A Milcar, yes or no?
Yes, but I'm going to further explain my answer.
Okay.
in a second.
All right. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
G Funky, yes or no?
I say
Oh,
yeah.
he side-eyed the wife. I saw that. I saw it. Boxing Wave.
Yes,
Should it be-
absolutely.
Wow.
Definitely. Yeah.
I am in shock. Okay, Chicano.
I think it's a good idea, but I don't think they should be forced to do it.
I agree with Chicano. I don't think we should force it to do it. But hey, maybe it will work. But go ahead, Milcar.
No, I was just going to say I'm a teacher and I see a lot of similarities between this and kind of affirmative action. And, that kind of sounds like an affirmative action. And I've oftentimes argued against affirmative action, simply because I think that really what needs to happen when you're talking about opportunity is creating the opportunity. In this case, it's at the grassroots. And in education, it's in the early years of education. I mean, once you're already at the end stage, you're really talking about a stage that's too late. I mean, the stage you should be focusing on is really the ground level stage, and in this case, the grassroots. So what I would say about this, I see it as two real problems. One, we're in a country where the government does not invest in amateur sport at all. It just doesn't. You go to other countries, whether it's Germany, whether it's France, whether it's Italy, Japan, the country invests in amateur sports. All right. So here, unfortunately, a lot of the sports that women are very good at are sports that parents need to take mortgages out on their homes, taking mortgages out on their homes to fund. Volleyball is tens of thousands of dollars. Soccer, tens of thousands of dollars. Kids are having to play travel. They're having to go all over the country. They're in hotels. They're paying for travel. It's very expensive. Tennis, I could go on and on, right? So the country's got to figure out a way to start funding sports, especially for sports that really speak to like the working class and the lower income population, like boxing does. So that's the second thing. And the third thing, and this is the tough thing, really, parents do not look at boxing the way they look at other martial arts. Parents are much more likely to put their kids into karate or judo or taekwondo, especially if it's a girl, even jujitsu, than they are to put their son or daughter into boxing. Boxing's got this stigma about it. So we need to kind of correct that as well. So to me, those are the three things. You got grassroots, that has to be the focus. You've got to have investment from the government in amateur sport, all right, especially at the low level. And then the third thing is we've got to kind of get boxing to where the other martial arts are, because those martial arts are the ones that are feeding women's MMA. The women MMA, that's where the talent's coming from. It's coming from the girls that were put into judo and taekwondo and karate at 6, 7, 8 years old. That's just not happening with boxing. So that's what I wanted to say. Thanks, D-Style.
Yeah, I'll tell
Great
you
point,
what,
man. Great.
and I want to add this to something like what Christine said. Look, women's gymnastics is the #1 highest rated Olympic sport in the world and in the United States since the 1970s. Men's gymnastics isn't that high. Okay, nobody watches the men's gymnastics. Okay, you know why? Because men, we don't watch men's gymnastics. Okay, like it's just not a thing we watch, right? So I think maybe there's just something to what like 408 said. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if there's anything that can be done, but it doesn't hurt to try, right? So I guess the panel has voted. The chat, it was very popular, by the way, in the chat. The yes was really popular to kind of enforce that. There was some no's, but for a second, I thought Kevin from Kerry was saying half of the fights should be women's fights. I don't know about that, but he meant one or two. One or two, okay. I'm going to go ahead and go around here. We do got to wrap it up. Anybody who comes on, and I like to be courteous to everybody, I say it's 2 hours, so we're going to wrap this one up. So just really quick, give us some final thoughts. Go ahead, Christine.
I just want to say thank you again. It's always a pleasure to be on here. And y'all, please follow me on In the Ring with Christine. When I'm not overseas or in camp, I'm doing videos and doing great interviews. So please follow me. Thanks.
There you go. Thank you very much for being here. Joe Beeb, give us some final thoughts.
Speaking of the Olympics, did you guys know that break dancing is an Olympic sport now?
I just heard that. It's going to be us.
One every year. One.
I don't know what that was.
You missed your window.
You were doing Vogue. That's not breakdancing. What's going on over here? But
Jersey.
G-Funky's already a break dancer.
New England style. Anything
else? Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's important to showcase women on the undercards. That's how they built Christy Martin. That's how they built Lucia Riker. So that was a blueprint that worked. So why not go with what works? So I'm in full support of that. The whole thing with the zone, we'll see how this plays out. And I wonder if the zone will continue to do this in the future. Try to bring the pay-per-view back with not just Canelo, but with other fighters. And this may be a way of them getting Canelo back into the fold here. He may not be a long-term contract signing for them, but maybe they can continue to do work with Canelo on a fight-to-fight basis because they can give him this added revenue off of the pay-per-view. I'm sure this is going to help Canelo get more money too as well. So this was a great move for DAZN to try to supplement some of that income for Canelo and lure him back onto the platform. So that was one thing that I didn't mention and that I probably should have mentioned early when we were talking about this. I'm going to stick with my prediction. I think Canelo is going to win handily, but I'm still intrigued by the fight because I wouldn't mind being wrong. I wouldn't mind this fight being competitive. I make a prediction doesn't mean I want it to go that way. So I would rather see the fight be competitive and entertaining. So I'll cross my fingers and hope for the best.
All right. 408, give us some final thoughts, brother.
I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate being on this panel with this great cast of commentary. What is the word I'm looking for? I'm tired, guys. Yeah, commentators. Yeah, you can catch my show, The Shoe Shine, on the Leave It in the Ring app on Pandora. This is a great weekend for boxing. Actually, Triple G looks really, really good at that weigh-in, and it'll keep that conversation going. Whether or not we're going to get a trilogy with Canelo, but also Boots Ennis. I want to see what he does this weekend because he's in the running for me as well at 147 pounds. As a prospect of the year candidate. If he gets a knockout, I may change my mind on the Berlanga pick.
All right. Emil Carr, give us some final thoughts, brother.
Yeah, just happy to be on. Great to see Boxing Wave again and get to see Chicano Prophet here with us too. Everyone else, it's great to see all of you again. And I think we're going to have a really great weekend of fights. So Friday and Saturday. And it actually got kicked off with the Tim Tszyu card this week. I'm sure a lot of you saw that. Kid looked dominating again. So yeah, it's been a great week of boxing so far. I look forward to seeing all of you again next week.
Absolute Chicano Prophet. Give us some final thoughts.
Well, thanks for having me on. Great panel and enjoy the fight this weekend, everybody. I think it's actually going to be a good one while it lasts. I would make this my 100% prediction, but we all know Canelo's going to whip that ass, so I'm going to save it.
All right. Okay, Eric from Ringside Reporter, give us some final thoughts, man.
Just want to say thank you so much for inviting me on. Great panel as always, except for Joe Habib. You can catch me at Ringside73 on Twitter. You can catch our show on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And looking forward to the Smith fight, man. Smith and Canelo. I think it's a good fight, man. And I would not be surprised to see the upset.
Yeah, I mean, I know you emailed me and said one of my conditions, I don't want Joe Habib on the panel, but I couldn't kick him out. You know what I mean?
I don't see why. It's your show. I don't see why.
All right.
Too much of a fan base.
Yeah, Chief Funky, give us some final thoughts, brother.
Well, I want to give some advice to Eric real quick, man. You might want to hide those belts, man. One of these fighters might come looking for you, man, and try to fight you for those belts. But no, this has been another great roundtable. I want to thank everybody that was in the chat. We had, quite a few people here today. So make sure you guys, if you didn't hit that like button, hit the like button. If you're not subscribe to D-Style and everybody here, everybody on the platform here has a channel. So make sure you subscribe to them. This is going to be my last show for a while. I got to step away for a little bit, but it's been great, man. The last year and a half, I've been doing some shows with D-Style and a lot of other guys. I got to know a lot of good people, but I'll be back, man. Just hang in there and keep watching, guys.
Absolutely. And Boxing Wave closes out with some final thoughts, brother.
Again, thank you for having me on the show. And it was a great show. Love the discussions, all of the discussion. Everybody here, great stuff. Make sure you subscribe or follow everyone's social media platform here. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, of course. I will be doing live commentary Saturday for the Canelo fight for sure. Probably going to be flipping back and forth with the Ennis fight as well. And not too sure about Triple G fight tomorrow, but I'll try to jump on for a little bit during that fight. But yeah, man, great time. And thank you for having me again, always.
And before I close this out, hey, G-Funk, this is D-Style Boxing. And what do we say?
Keep it boxing.
All right, we're out, guys. Peace.